Hey, what's up, fellow YouTubers? This is Steve Q here, author of Notes from a Salesman. And normally, if you watched any of my videos before, you'll notice that I'm usually somewhere sunny and exotic and, you know, really great, like my back garden here. But today, you can see, you wouldn't want to jump in that pool, would you? So what I want to talk to you about today is, it's a very quick training. It's what I call, and obviously I've not got a flipboard because it gets soaking wet, but it's called the 5D principle. So if you've got a pen and paper, just to write these down, we're going to run very quickly through this. Normally it can take an hour or two to do this, but I'm going to try and get through this in about, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 minutes, something like that. So the first word beginning with D, guys, is desire. Desire, write that down. D-E-S-I-R-E. I have to remind myself how to spell things sometimes because I'm a shocking speller. But desire is one of the words that, or one of the principles in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And I'm sure you've read that. If you haven't, put it on your list to read. Desire is one of the things that he talks about because desire underpins everything. If you've got a goal, then you need to have a strong desire for the attainment of that goal. And maybe here's a clue about goals, because we develop all these goals and we develop all these things on our wish list and whatnot. Look at them and say, you know what, be honest with yourself. How's my desire in relation to that? On a scale of 1 to 10, is my desire for that goal a 2 or a 3 or a 4? If it's anything below a 5 or a 6, you should park that goal for another time or even put it in the bin. Okay? And only focus on the goals and on the things that you've got a very strong, heartfelt and emotional desire to get to attain. Okay? So desire, very, very important. And desire is really the focal point of all achievement. How much do you want it? You know, which leads us into the next word, and that's determination. That's so sort of inextricably linked to desire, guys. But all the great leaders in history, whether you like them, love them, loathe them, people like Napoleon, people like Alexander the Great, all of these people, and great achievers in business as well, they got determination levels off the scale. Absolutely so determined. And you know, there is a saying, isn't there, that says nothing can resist eventually an iron will. I was always reminded of the story when I talk about determination of a lady called Margaret Mitchell. You've heard of that old film. At the time, it was the biggest grossing film in history, called Gone with the Wind. Well, Margaret Mitchell wrote the book Gone with the Wind. And you know what, just before I tell you about her, I've got a very good friend of mine who's an uber talented musician. He was told, you know, you're going to be the next Eric Clapton, the next Jimmy Page, whatever. And it didn't happen at first. And he just gave up. You know, he just went into other things, and he's still a brilliant musician, but he gave up. He fell at the first hurdle. And we're going to get hurdles. Margaret Mitchell got hurdles, guys. She wrote this book, Gone with the Wind. She put her heart and her soul and her whole imagination into this thing. And then she was rejected by not one publisher, not 2, 3, 4, 5. It went on and on and on and on. And they were saying things to her like, you know, Margaret, this is a great book, but it's not for today's time. Nobody reads this type of thing. No one's going. We'd be lucky if we could sell a couple of 100 copies of this book. You'd think that would dissuade her, wouldn't you? You'd think that would put her off. You'd think that would send her back to the drawing board or to a normal job. But no, she kept going and going and going. She was doggedly persistent, doggedly determined, guys. And eventually, after being rejected 39 times by 39 different publishers, imagine going on Dragon's Den 39 times, being rejected time after time after time with exactly the same pitch. That's how determined this woman was. And somebody eventually saw in this book what she saw in it. And as I said earlier, it became the biggest selling book and the biggest grossing film of all time at the time. It's been overtaken now, obviously, by things like Deadpool. which I watched this weekend, which is hilarious. Deadpool 2, by the way. That begins with a D as well, doesn't it? So this is actually the 6D training. There you go, Deadpool, quickly. So the third D, you know what? People talk about, oh, people are so busy nowadays, don't they? Everybody is so damn busy. You know, you can't get hold of anyone. People take 3 days to... What's all this about when you're having a conversation with somebody? You get an answer 3 days later. I thought we were talking, albeit by text, you know? People are so busy, aren't they? No, they're not. No, they're not. People are so damn distracted. Okay, so I want you to be consciously aware of this. I don't want you to fall into this trap. You see, these things, mobile phones and tablets and computers and all the gadgetry and all the apps and all the programs, they're wonderful. I love them. Ask anyone who knows me, they know I've got 4 mobile phones. I've got 2 laptops, 2 different types of... I'm a gadget freak. I should be presenting that show on Channel 5, the Gadget Show. Honestly, everybody takes the mickey out of me because I'm into gadgets, but I'm also aware that they are the biggest source of distraction. So somebody, in fact, it was Bob Proctor, if you've heard of him. He said to me when I was hanging around with him like 15 years ago or something, he had this thing, he said, the main thing is always the main thing. Now, what does that mean? The main thing is always the main thing. Well, it's very, very good advice. And what it means is if you're focused on a job or on a goal or on a task, that is the main thing. And nothing else gets in the way. Not a phone call, not a tweet, not a quick look at a YouTube video. The only thing that gets in the way is if you need to go to the bathroom. It's not going to the coffee machine. The main thing is the main thing until it's done. Then you can do what you like. Then you can have some time off. Absolutely no problem with that at all. But focus, laser focus. The main thing is always the main thing. Be aware. Don't get distracted and spread this to your colleagues. It's the biggest stifler of productivity that I can think of. It really is, you know, other than a power cut. It really is. But talking about a power cut, that's what distraction does. It cuts your power. If you're being distracted from 360 degrees, guys, your personal power, your ability to focus is being cut. It's being decimated. So don't get distracted. Be aware, and be aware and when it's happening, when the tweet comes in, when you're doing something, don't look at it. Leads me into the next word. This word I always associated with school because I was quite a naughty boy at school. If you can imagine that. I'm sure you can't, but I can assure you that I was. And I was at school in the 1970s. And you know what? I used to get sent frequently to the boss's room, the headmaster, touch your toes, no question, no, no Spanish Inquisition, just touch your toes and 6 of the best across the backside. And it didn't half hurt. Till I learned to actually start going to school, it's another D word, with my mum's dusters. Sewn into my pants so it didn't hurt quite as much because I knew that I wasn't going to change at the time. But that's what I associated discipline with. Wasn't until I looked at the other side of discipline, until I was watching Jim Rohn some years ago, and I'm going to paraphrase him, but there's an old saying, isn't there, that the devil is in the detail. Well, guys, the devil's also in the discipline. Disciplining yourself not to be distracted. Disciplining yourself to do whatever it takes to get to where you want to be from where you are right now. It's all about discipline. Training is about discipline. Of course, Muhammad Ali said he virtually hated every minute of his training. Can you believe that? He virtually hated every minute of it. And, you know, he's hailed as the greatest boxer in history. And I'd be inclined, as a boxing fan, I'd be inclined to agree with that. He was a one-off. And he said he hated every moment of training, all the hours in the gym, all the skipping, all the running, all the punch bag, all the sparring, all the shadow boxing. He hated it all, but he knew he had to discipline himself and focus on it to get to where he wanted to be. And that was champion of the world and rich. And that's exactly what he did. But it was discipline and determination and desire. All these words that I'm talking to you about, they got Muhammad Ali to where he was, okay? And Here's an interesting word for the 5th D, guys. This is the mother of all D words, and it is this: decision. We don't like making decisions, do we? As human beings, we are hardwired to not like making decisions because we grow into our own environments, don't we? We rock up somewhere and we get our little routine going, and within a few days or a few weeks, whatever, we're quite comfortable there. And then somebody says, well, make a decision to move over here, and we don't like it because we're nice and comfortable here. Stepping over here is stepping into the unknown or into uncertainty. But let me tell you guys, your ability to make decisions, strengthening the decision-making muscles, will improve the quality of your life tenfold if you can make decisions rapidly and not procrastinate. Procrastination is the absolute enemy. Procrastination will slow you up, will hold you up. It will stop you from doing things like you've never, ever known. If you can develop those decision-making muscles and make decisions, not silly little foolhardy decisions, but when it comes to making decisions, if you can make them, in Think and Grow Rich, again, Napoleon Hill said that he found in the study of all the most successful men in the world at the time that they all made decisions fairly rapidly. And once they'd made a decision, they rarely went back on that decision. So if you can make decisions, that would be an amazing boost to your progress. Tony Robbins years ago said, I think the quality of your life will be in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty that you can comfortably live with at any one time. That's a real old mouthful, isn't it? And I heard that 15 or 20 years ago in Unlimited Power, or I read it in the book, but it's so true. It is so true, isn't it? All these things, or the quality of our lives, is so linked to the decisions we make. Do we want to increase the quality of our life? Do we want to increase our business? Do we want to take a risk or two here? We've got to make a decision, guys. Here's the other thing though, if you're in sales, and you probably are, we're all in some form of sales, we've got to get other people to make decisions because we're trying to influence people. We've got to get them to make decisions. So here's a couple of tips that I sort of use in getting people to make decisions. The first thing is, it's a rapport, empathy thing. I say, look, I'm just like you. I hate making decisions. I'm the world's worst at making decisions. Now, that's not strictly true, but it's not strictly a lie because I've disciplined myself to get good at making decisions. I've strengthened the decision-making muscles. So empathy. People like to deal with people who they perceive are like them to a lesser or greater extent. We all know that, don't we? So build rapport by saying, look, but once I'd made that decision, I'm okay. Once I'd made the decision, I didn't regret it. Once I'd made the decision, actually, it was one of the best decisions that I've ever made in my life. Also, another way to phrase it, if you're in sales again, when somebody won't decide or can't decide, or they've got to ask everybody else in the world before they can actually make that decision. Isn't that interesting? That people will put the biggest decisions in the hands of, you know, a guy in the pub, or someone they barely know, or someone who's ill-informed or ignorant on the subject we're talking about. When you're the expert, yet they don't really listen to you. That's because they don't trust you. That's because they're suspicious. That's because they think you've got an ulterior motive, which of course you have, but you should also have another ulterior motive if you're doing the right thing with the right intent, and that's to get them in it for their own good as well. You know, Zig Ziglar said, didn't he? Selling is something we do for someone, not to someone. So remember that one, guys. But here's another great way, just to finish off, to say, look, you know what? Some of my best customers, my best clients who've been with me for years, who are constantly rebuying and recommending their friends and family, they said exactly the same thing. They thought exactly the same thing when I first broached them with this, but they made the decision, they took the leap of faith, and now it's one of the best decisions that they ever made, and they're eternally pleased, eternally grateful and thankful, and we've got a great relationship. They've been with us like 5-10 years, you know, that type of thing. That can also be very powerful in getting somebody to make a decision, in influencing somebody to make a decision. I know influence doesn't begin with D, but remember, in sales, we are influencers. It's a very popular word now, isn't it? They're even putting people on social media who are quote-unquote influencers, What are they there to influence us to do? They're there to influence us to buy, to spend our money with the company that's paying them to influence us. So I'll leave you with that thought, guys. Thanks for checking in. That's the 5D principle. If you want to talk to me about training your sales team with similar sort of methods, similar sort of trainings, then please get in touch. Drop me a message, PM me, call me. My best result so far is a whopping 74% increase with one telesales organisation in 6 months. I'm looking to try and beat that, actually. So if you'd like to be the organisation that we do it with, get in touch. I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for checking in. Bye-bye.